Welcome to the Charleston Marketing Podcast, powered by the Charleston American Marketing Association, broadcasting from our home base at Charleston Radio Group. Thanks to CRG, we're able to talk to the movers and shakers of Charleston, from economy to art, from hospitality to tech, and everything in between. These leaders have made a home here in the Lowcountry. They live here, they work here, they make change here. Why? Let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome to the Charleston Marketing Podcast, powered by the Charleston American Marketing Association. We're here recording in the Charleston Radio Group studios. Mike Compton here, president of Roombo Advertising, GoRoombo.com, and your director of membership experience. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined by my fellow co-host, Stephanie. Stephanie, say what's up.
What's up, everybody? I'm Stephanie Barrow, your CamaPass president, the founder of Stephanie Barrow Consulting, a digital strategy agency here in Charleston. And I'm excited to be here with our friend Ernest. He is the founder of the founder and director of the Charleston Digital Corridor, an organization that is the nucleus of the region's tech community.
I'm delighted to be here with you, Mike and Stephanie.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Spending a little bit of time with your audience.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
And to get to know you a little bit, we awkwardly read your bio in front of you.
Yes, we do. We do that.
Let's get into it, huh? Ernest Andrade, the founder and CEO of the Charleston Digital Corridor, has been a driving force in the Charleston tech community for over 20 years. Through his efforts with the CDC, successfully engaged the local community to support entrepreneurs and attract top tech talent to the area, accelerating the growth of Charleston's tech economy from 18 companies in 2001 to over 700 today. Ernest has worked tirelessly to foster a thriving tech ecosystem in Charleston through 4 pillars: community, talent, workspace, and capital. He has built relationships with local businesses, educational institutions, and government officials to create a supportive environment for tech companies to flourish. One of the CDC's key milestones has been the recent development of the 92,000 square foot Charleston Tech Center, a hub for local tech businesses to work, collaborate, and grow. The center offers flexible office space, access to business resources, entrepreneur education, and networking opportunities, making it an attractive location for tech companies ranging from the startups to publicly traded companies. Good Lord, I'm just going to stop right there and let you kind of go on.
He's a very impressive man.
To talk about how that got started here. I mean, what you came from Kuwait out of nowhere and decided to pick Charleston of all places. I know it wasn't the direct path that you were thinking of, but you were so open-minded that it didn't, you just made the best of any situation, I feel like, didn't you?
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yeah, so it is interesting. It's a twist of fate, as I like to call it, how I ended up in Charleston.
I love it.
And I was originally scheduled to go to school at Fairleigh Dickinson University in Hackensack, at the Hackensack campus in New Jersey. And they had oversubscribed their foreign student quota, for lack of a better word. And they said, hey, listen, Ernest, last in, first out, we'll take you the following semester. And I didn't want to lose 6 months, I guess. And so there was a gentleman who worked with my father in Kuwait who said, hey, Andy, there's this place in Charleston, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Your son can go there, and if he wants to transfer back to New Jersey, that'd be fine. And as I said, the rest is history. I came here and never left.
And that was the late 80s?
And that was that was actually in the early 80s.
Early 80s.
It was in the early 80s, and so I had just finished. It's interesting the way the Indian education system works. You finish your high school, and then you go into what they call pre-university college. Okay. But this is where you decide whether you're going to be a banker, an engineer, or a doctor. Okay. And they have these tracks. And so I was in the first of 2 years of that when my parents made a decision. And this was not something that my parents were sort of unique in this regard. There was this trend, basically, for parents to send their kids to Europe and in America for studies.
Okay.
And not necessarily.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like
and the reputation of, there's a lot of angst around K through 12, but then you start talking about higher ed, and American institutions are still known around the world as top notch in terms of higher ed. So it was this. Let's follow that pattern, and
Yeah.
lo and behold, so here's a kid born in Kuwait, who's now then from there I ended up at about 13 going to a boarding school run by Jesuits, and which was I tell you, then when we start thinking about discipline,
Yeah.
I think it was at the level that I never experienced in my life before, and came with, in my case, because I was sort of a mediocre student, came with my share of canings.
Oh my!
So,
Were your parents strict too?
no,
or
not
was this-
not so strict. And I think
So you-
I think at the end of the day, it was the logistics because of the school closing in Kuwait and not wanting to have to go into Kuwait City.
Okay.
So it was that logistics, and also the desire for good education, and
Yeah.
perhaps the fact that a little bit of discipline went a long way.
I guess
and,
so.
And I think that it's at the time you don't appreciate it, but that discipline kind of shapes the man you're going to be later on in life. So you may not like it then, but I love it today, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
Right.
So Dad worked in the oil industry. There was nothing else actually quite at that time. It was primarily the Kuwait economy was driven primarily by the discovery and production and export of oil.
Okay.
And it's a different place today, but back then, it was just kind of developing. Yeah. So that's what brought me to Charleston.
So College of Charleston brought you to Charleston.
College of Charleston. I ended up going to the College of Charleston and graduate. Although I did try to escape a couple of times, I got accepted to school back in New Jersey.
Right.
You went back
Got
up.
accepted to school in Florida at the Florida Institute of Tech because I was kind of thinking I'd go to more of a technical degree.
I can see that.
But by now it's kind of spoiled. So I spent like 3 weeks in one place and one in the other. And I'm like, no, I'm coming back here. And so just finished up my education at the College of Charleston. Lovely place.
Yes.
And then you got your master's from University of South Carolina.
Yeah, so at the time there was this joint program with the College of Charleston where you could get your degree that was offered by the University of South Carolina in Charleston. You had to spend a couple of semesters a couple of classes up there. It was too convenient. And what's interesting about that, I was actually post-graduation, I was heading towards an MBA, and there was an faculty advisor, Sam Hines, actually Dr. Hines, who recommended getting a master's in public administration, and his rationale behind that was that the public sector needed more professionals with a business mindset in government.
Got it.
And that's where it was heading, and I bought in. And I'm not sure that's where it was heading, but that was what was represented to me. And so I headed in, got my master's in public administration, and here's the one thing that I chose to do is I chose to run my time in the public sector like I was in a private enterprise.
Smart.
So I bought a very business-like approach. So you can see everything about career-wise was not the kind of person you would find in government. All the way to I would be in meetings, I'd get in presentations, and people would look at me, who do you work for? You don't sound
You're like, can't you tell I'm the
you
boss?
don't sound like a government guy.
He wasn't
Right.
quite the boss yet. He was still coming up at that point.
But he's acting like the boss, which is good quality
that
to
was
have.
in college, getting your master's.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you took the government, what was it? The
Yeah,
public
the
service route.
Yeah, exactly. The public, so what?
Where you were swimming upstream the whole time.
Exactly. So it was public administration versus business administration, and the little caveat was, it's only 4 more classes to get your MBA if that's what you want.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of like I'm pregnant with the MPA,
Okay.
public administration, and then I come in to the city, and my first exposure to the city was an internship that was required to graduate.
Okay.
Where was this internship?
This was and it ended up being, I had a colleague in school, I guess a classmate, who was at the city of Charleston. She says, come on over and spend, 4 months at the city of Charleston.
Wow.
Nice.
And so that was my first, sort of experience, I guess, in coming in.
So what's keeping you here in Charleston?
So, it's really interesting because you have, as a student, so first of all, as I said, by twist of fate, I'm in Charleston.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, well, what about, and you tend to have there's this tendency to kind of look over your shoulder and go, what about the bigger cities? Mm-hmm. What about the New Yorks? What about the DCs? What about the Californias? And it's states. It's not necessarily cities.
Yeah.
But then what's really interesting is, so I started visiting these places when I was a student. And I would always kind of come, and I'd always come back, and I'm like, oh my God, I mean, this place is just great. And, after a lot of thinking about it and being at the College of Charleston, I realized that more than anything else, Charleston had a soul.
Yeah.
It does.
And a lot of cities might be great cities, but they don't have a soul. So then I'm very sort of analytical and sort of introspective about some of these things. And I'm like, it's the size. It's the size of the city, right? And I didn't think of the city as this big, giant mass. I just thought of the peninsula, which was my kind of world when I was in college. You can walk from one end to the other if you really want to do it. But really, you get into it. Now, remember growing up in Kuwait, there's plenty of money. There were, a lot of advantages to being there. But there was livability because we had all these facilities and everything else. But there was something unique about Charleston. So I attributed it to, if I would say characteristically, how would you define it? It was the geography, right? Being in this really great climate, a coastal environment where you could just get to the water's edge in a hurry. It was the people, consistently being ranked one of the friendliest cities. Well, there was a reason
The
because
food doesn't
people were
hurt
genuine.
either.
Exactly, there was genuinely the food. Oh my gosh! I mean, the food scene has
Next
always
level.
been kind of amazing. I'll go to other cities and I come back, and I'm like, wow, I didn't really have a great meal when I was there, but I'm back, and that kind of. So I think you talk about the food scene, you talk about the make of the people, you talk about the geography, and all these things, and you actually feel like a person,
Right.
and that was important. So that's what kept me. And then professionally, I was in a very unique situation, right? So by now, I'm reporting directly to Joe Riley, and so fast forward a little bit, I end up getting married, and my wife moves from the Middle East. She was in Abu Dhabi, moves to Charleston, and and so she falls in love with the place much like I had, except she falls in love with it more than I did.
Okay.
So there was
that works out good for you, though.
So there's this reluctance to kind of like professionally, you're thinking, okay, I'm kind of like tapped out here. I've got to like, as my sister would say, go and get a real job. So I had to start thinking about, okay, what's next? But I had this very unique situation I was in, and I realized, again, just through this process of kind of self-discovery about myself, I realized, Ernest, you have this very unique position, right? You work for this super visionary leader. The city's in the middle of a renaissance, and what you can do is add
value
your,
to it.
you can add your areas of interest, right? So Joe Riley was all about place, building an amazing place. And I was all about the economy. So I had this sense of, so the two don't exist in a vacuum. They kind of exist together.
Right.
So so the first half of my career with the city was actually growing the place. We were 38 square miles.
Yeah, talk about that. Like
And-
you didn't just choose to pick Charleston to live here. You grew. You were
I-
part of that growth.
Yeah, when
right?
I had come in during my internship, so I would just go here or go by, and there were like 15 doors in that office, and I made it a point to kind of, out of curiosity, what is going on in that office?
Sure.
So it was office 1 to office 15, and I knew everything that was going on, and it was like, okay, if you're going to be a city manager, you need to know everything about what's going on, right? Don't rely on somebody to report back to you. Well, I did this, and it took me 3 days. Ask somebody what they're doing, try to figure out how long it took. Meet with the police chief, meet with the fire chief. So I had this kind of curiosity, and remember, I'm in public administration.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was, to be a CEO of like a city or a city manager, except I realized that I'm really not a political guy, and I'm not particularly fond of politicians. Right? I'm a little more convicted, and so I realized if you serve as a city manager, if you serve at the pleasure of a politician, then you could be gone tomorrow.
Right.
So the better thing to do was to become a specialist. So I had this now elevated curiosity, so I would go through and find out what everybody did. And that's how I kind of, one of the offices was the gentleman who ran the annexation program for the city.
Right.
And he said, Ernest, he says, I'm leaving. I'm moving to Atlanta. And this position's going to come open.
Okay.
And perhaps you should. And it looked like the most uninteresting job.
Right.
Every time I'd walk by, he was poring over these maps. And I was like, not interested. Except that this went on. And then his boss said, we've got this role and you should take a look at it. And then her boss said, the director comes to me and says, if you're interested, perhaps you should. So that was annexation. We were 38 square miles. And again, I'm very sort of mission focused. So very quickly, when I have this brief conversation with Joe Riley about what do you want? What do you want to accomplish with this role? And he says, well, we were talking about the geography and the layout. And he says, I want it all. I'm like, okay, well, so that's the strategy then. You want it all. So I tell people, I said, in terms of annexation and because of the political environment and the legislative environment, the strategy that I adopted was not to have a strategy. So my strategy was if you verbalized what you're going to do, you'll be shut down before you even get to the start line.
Okay.
So the way you're going to find out what the strategy is, you're going to find out not when I'm executing it, but when it is executed.
Yeah,
so you're going to read in the newspaper.
Present it when it's already...
Exactly. And the pinnacle of that was the annexation of Daniel Island into the city of Charleston.
Oh.
Nobody knew what was coming. And one day you pick up the newspaper and you see the city of Charleston moves to annex Daniel Island. And Daniel Island represented 4,500 acres out of 20,000 acres that we substantially annexed in Berkeley County. So we jumped county line. But my point being that, and I remember Joe Riley referring it at one point to Charleston's Louisiana Purchase. So economically, it was such a. I was
going to say, how truly spectacular to,
it was
to be like almost in the forefront of Charleston history for all of these years.
Yeah.
That is so
It
cool.
was amazing. I mean, and I would actually, when I first knew that the mayor had expressed some interest, I was on the island before the 526, before the infrastructure was open. So I had to take the back door. And I actually befriended the engineer who was in charge of the construction. He was with Wilbur Smith, a firm that was involved in construction of the bridge across Daniel Island.
That is down.
That is
down.
Amazing.
Last time I tried to get there, actually, it's
not
working.
So
they're working on it.
Exactly. So just taking the back way, and it was really interesting, and all the nuances. And there was one little shack, and it was hilarious because affectionately, I wish today that I had taken a picture then. It was called the Daniel Island City Hall, and it literally was a little hunting shack. It was used as a little venue.
That's when you have the time machine and you go back in time and you buy plots of land,
Right.
and you are like multi-millionaire now because that Daniel Island is spectacular. It's beautiful.
Exactly. But it was so my point is, okay, we go from 38 square miles and it's just me.
Right.
And we're now at 100 square miles. And the one thing is I'm not a management oriented guy. I'm a development minded guy. So, I tell the mayor, I said, listen, I fulfilled most of the obligation. We butt up to the boundaries of the neighboring jurisdictions, being Mount Pleasant, Ravenel, and James Island. So I said, I think it's time for me to move on, And he said, well, time out here. What do you have in mind? And so, for a guy who, as part of this annexation process, I'm in the planning department. It was the annexation division was a part of planning.
Yeah.
So I started to develop this interest in urban planning and the economics associated with planning. So naturally then I honed that into economic development. And when I'm looking at economic development, I'm like, why are we engaging in a race to the bottom? Why is it that the only thing we want to talk about is cheap land, cheap labor, cheap utilities, non-union, something, unfortunately, that we still do today? But the pattern with what I was seeing was our economic targets were contributing to wage growth that was non-existent. Our wages had flatlined for a decade. And then I noticed the cost of living was increasing at a tremendous rate. I'm like, so guess what? I hearken back a little bit, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a third world economy. The have and the have-nots. We can't have that. So I go in and this is my observation, right? And I'm like, listen, Riley's a busy guy. Don't go over there and ruminate over your observations.
Right.
You go over there, and my advice to anybody, if you go to your boss, go to solutions.
Yes.
Don't go with conversation.
Right.
So I go in and I tell him, and I say, listen, Mayor, I said, this is an amazing place. You've polished this lump of coal and turned it into a diamond, and I think we can go further. Except we're bought into this regional strategy of pushing cheap, and I think it might be important to add a dimension that we've not previously seen.
So this is...
We're not going to do an about face. We're just going to start thinking of it in terms of diversity, economic diversity. So what you're going to do is you're going to focus on the intellectually driven industries rather than manufacturing driven industries, right? And the argument was that there will always be a place south and always be a place east where you can manufacture cheaper. But you can't steal somebody of his intellect. And that's what you want, right? So that's the highest value add, where I'm the millionaire setting the direction for the worker producing the car, the widget, right? And we can't just be focused on widgets and pushing cheap, cheap, cheap. We actually can be on the other side of it. And so I just said, if it's okay, I'm not divorcing myself, but I'm just going to focus on this aspect.
Yeah.
And that came with a little bit of angst
I bet.
in the community, because some of us who were involved, not excluding myself, were involved with the closure of the Navy base. And the mindset was, we have this economic crisis. We just need to take whatever we can get. And I'm like, okay, guys, we're over the crisis. Now we've got to start ratcheting up the game. And I'm thinking to myself that this is a big geography. That when you start talking about Dorchester, Berkeley, and Charleston County, that makes up our Tri-County region, when you start eating lunch at Charleston in downtown Charleston, you're not thinking about a rural spot in Berkeley County, and you're not speaking the same language.
What year was this? Just out of curiosity.
So this was getting into the late '90s.
Okay.
Right.
Just a little
And so the perspective was, so I'm looking around and I'm thinking to myself, look at all this stuff, look at all these cities, look at RTP, and look at tech starting to boom, right? And the whole thing, I mean, the Y2K thing in 2000, that just kind of elevated my thinking of technology.
Right.
Number one. Number two, because of my background, growing up in a highly competitive environment in boarding school in Bangalore, India, which is Bangalore's India, Silicon Valley, I am now starting to think about some of these guys and where they ended up. And when I started looking on basically where these folks were, they were all, a lot of them basically, a good 40% of them were in tech companies, and they were doing very well.
So this is how the digital corridor started to become a thing.
So you start thinking selfishly, I want some of that. I want some of that for my community, right? And okay, everything we have is great.
Right.
I'm not one of these guys saying, oh, well, look, I'm by nature, I'm sort of a malcontent. It requires that, right?
Uh-huh.
And you'd get all these awards. Oh, look at Charles, most friendly, most most this.
You're like, it's never enough.
And what I kept thinking to myself, oh my gosh, wages have flatlined.
Right.
And cost of living's going up. And these guys and gals are high-fiving in the corridor. What is wrong with you folks? We can do better. We can leverage in the meantime. I'm like, I love this place. I want to stay here. So at every Christmas, I'm like, no, I need to move. We would talk to my family. I'm like, no, I'm staying here. But then again, I have this aha moment where, like, Ernest, you really can be an agent of change working for an amazing visionary, and you've got a proven track record going from 38 square miles to 100, and you have a certain, you have some professional coins that are in your pocket, right? And this leads to the whole, so I'm going in totally unaware of where we can end up, talking to somebody who's completely unaware of what the hell I'm talking about, right? But there's just this element of trust that I don't know, but this guy will somehow end up on the right side of the things. But I'm not sharing in the meantime all of the data that I'm processing from the Indian economy, the economies of India and China. So I didn't go in, contrary to what most people would think, I didn't go in blind, right? India is to intellect what China is to manufacturing. So guess what I did? I immediately started to focus on India. And it was Jack Welch who really kind of like tipped me over the edge. And he said, when GE opened a facility in India, we went for cost. And we didn't realize the quality of the workforce. And that's when I realized, that we have got to start focusing on this. And so, and I said, this is India. And look what we have. We've got like Shangri-La over here. I don't want to leave. And so in order not to leave, very selfishly, there were two things.
You got to invent the next
I got to create that place that allows me to exist in Charleston and not move. And selfishly, now there's a second element. I have my daughter's now 2 years old. And I'm like, okay, what is she going to do? Right? So now this commitment just strengthens. It just solidifies. And I'm like, hey, guy, you're not leaving, right? Because
this is where I'm going to be.
Yeah, this is where I'm going to be. And my daughter, I'm the true test is going to be, where is my daughter going to go when she graduates, right? So that sets the basis for the Digital Corridor's mission.
Love it.
And the mission is very simple: to create a diverse economy under the premise that a resilient community is tied to a diverse economy, right? Economic resilience is tied to a diverse economy. So we got to create a diverse economy. Remember, I didn't tell the other guys pushing cheap and non-union and everything else. Please, by all means.
Do you, right?
You know?
Sure.
I'm not going to focus on the elephants. I'm kind of chasing the gazelles. Different kind of. It's a different strategy, right? Number one. Number two, I said, I want my kids to be able to live and work in their town. If they choose to leave, that's their prerogative. But it's incumbent on me to create the opportunities that allow them to stay over here. Now it's a shame on you versus a shame on me, right? My community affords you these jobs at a competitive wage, all things considered. You want to go to New York and California making twice as much? Well, your cost of living is almost twice as much, right?
True story.
So let's just kind of have a timeout here and just talk about so create great jobs. Diversify the economy, and the third one was we got to raise the per capita wages. You can't bump along the bottom and let people avail themselves of all the niceties. That was in 2001 when we launched. Those were the objectives. Those objectives are very, very much with us today, right? So we set them up broadly enough, but still narrowly focused, to where we didn't have to you know how you get these groups sometimes and they're like, every board meeting at the end of the year, okay, how are we going to change our strategy?
Right.
We never changed the strategy. Tactics we did, but not strategy.
Sure.
I love
right?
that.
And
Playing
the tactics,
the long game.
Absolutely. And you couldn't do it any other way, right? Which leads to a second, right? Kind of takeaway from this whole thing. It's like, so you get out and you're telling these folks, I remember like it was yesterday. I'm speaking to this group, a large group of very notable Charlestonians, business people and such. And I'm telling them where we could be and about this whole tech thing that I've got planned. And in about 2 minutes into that lunch presentation, I'm feeling like a Martian. I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, Ernest, they don't get it. And so it was just so far out there.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting point. There's no crisis, right? Why do people have to act only when there's a crisis? The problem is that when you don't have a crisis and things are okay, what you do is you cultivate apathy. It's all good, man.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Right? And I said, if you're apathetic is when you get hammered. Right? And I used the great example of the rubber industry in Goodyear. We won't have any competition. We're in a higher. We're the kings, the auto industry. And all of a sudden, Asia starts rising. We're going to keep it the way it is. Oh, look at that tin can. I mean, the first Toyotas that came with the first Hondas. No. We're this, And all of a sudden, they become less and less relevant. So it is not crisis that leads to relevance or irrelevance. It's apathy. And I said, we can get apathetic and looking at these accolades. And I'm like, can you drill down behind that accolade and put an economic value to it? So if 10 was the tops and one, they were like 3s and 4s. So again, I mean, and this had nothing to do with my great desire to make Charleston a great place. It had everything to do with being able to stay here because my wife loved it, and I have a kid, and basically making sure that the economic opportunities would accrue to her. But the reality is, when you look at some of these very wealthy people, they're not selfless and community-minded. They're extremely selfish. They become that later in life. So I just said that we just have to go at it. And by the way, a takeaway was, now I'm coming out. Not only is the audience not bought in, but the economic development partners are like, we're not bought in because we don't know what you're talking about.
It's still early.
It's very early.
Mm-hmm.
And their point is that this is like professional suicide, man. We're not going to come anywhere near you. And so it was like very lonely, right? A characteristic that I absolutely share with an entrepreneur, so I can relate. You don't have any money. You've got this great idea, and nobody's kind of hanging with you,
Right.
and you're extremely lonely. You're not sleeping at night, and you're like, "But I'm going to win."
Yes.
You're gonna
Right?
win.
Failure is not an option, right?
Exactly.
Like I can sow that resonate. Anytime I'm sitting with an entrepreneur and he says, they tried to bump me off, they tried to do this, they tried to screw me. I'm like, I can, because it just happened at a different level.
Yeah.
But the way I managed it was the prize is the community. The prize is not your partners.
Focus on the prize.
And if your partners don't get it, when there is some validation of your model, they will come on.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold,
Yep.
they have come on. Right?
I was gonna
As
say,
time
at
has
some
gone
point,
by.
you've had to have some trials and tribulations through all of this. I know you're a visionary and you had this idea of what you wanted, but there had to have been some kind of struggle.
Well, it's years of
It was
I'm
it was
sure.
an absolute struggle. And
How many
I'll
years
tell-
did it take to get to a
I mean,
good
we're
point?
we're 23 years in.
Yeah, but,
Right, but in terms of, I think serious. It took about 10 years for people
Yeah.
to kind of start to see it. Where you're underwater in that wave, and then you're finally, not gasping for air every time you come
Yeah.
up and that kind of thing. And ironically, is the development of a physical facility, the first incubator on the corner of East Bay and Calhoun, that is now a Hilton resort property. It was that we all not because I'm not saying this started being judgmental, but the reality is that we're all kind of lowest common denominator. And when you can tangibly see something, you go, oh, that's what you're doing, and you can see people in the building moving
Yeah.
around, and oh, he's doing this tech, and these. All of a sudden, they get it, and like people are peering in the window. It was the old Hollywood video. Remember, video's never going away. The apathy, well, it went away, and streaming came in. And Netflix knocked them off. That kind of.
Yeah, internet
So-
will never
so-
happen.
So the bottom
not
line
happening in
was,
movie theaters.
in terms of trials and tribulations, you can't. I mean, it's easier for me to say today that you will be tested,
Right.
and you can't take your eye off the prize. But I'll tell you the one thing that I'd like to tell everybody, especially in a marketing world, in a world of innovation, collaboration is overrated, right? It's
I don't know about that.
All right, go ahead.
I'm hearing you out. I'm hearing you out.
So I know that you got to be a team player, Ernest. You got to go along with the regional plan. Well, nobody stopped long enough to understand that from a region, we are comprised. We're a quilt of different cities operating in a region.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that the other thing that I realized is your economic strategy or your community strategy needs to be a unified series of disaggregated strategies. So by doing the Charleston Digital Corridor and focusing on high wage and more rifle-like and not shotgun, I now had disaggregated from the regional strategy. So I was really the bastard who broke away.
I was going to say, you're writing your
Right.
own script at this point.
And so now if you think you're lonely, you get even lonelier because it's like you're not just the guy, you're the bad guy. You're not the guy who just kind of went out in the cold. So the idea was that there's more pressure now to produce and kind of bring them along. And I think that company X relocates, company Y, 17, 30, 40. Well, at 700 companies plus, nobody would question, that it was smart.
That
But
your
we had to
model's
start
working.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And the reason I say, Stephanie, back to full circle, and you said, no, why?
Yeah.
If I had gone along and collaborated, and I would have just been internally just very disgruntled. But I took some of that externally, and it manifested itself in the development of this three-prong strategy to build a high-wage economy, and those were the three things.
Sure.
So, in terms, so my point, to
you'd let it. I mean, you didn't have to collaborate, talk about anything. You let it, and then everybody else kind of jumps on board, and then they can collaborate their own spin. But this is our mission. And
keep in mind, every time I surfaced, I was, for lack of a better word, misunderstood of my intention of the and it was hard to communicate a vision. Now, keep in mind, I'm communicating a vision.
Yeah.
Well, when honestly, I don't know how things are going to gel.
What was that?
I don't know how things are going to gel.
Right,
I mean, it's like, trust me, it'll be okay.
Yeah, but.
And I am rife with self-doubt.
So what are you doing, though? Are you making, how to get those first 18 companies?
Yeah.
What did you do?
So, well, I didn't really have to do anything.
Okay.
Now, this is what most people don't understand, right? If you're going to develop a strategy, the first thing you should do is take stock of what you have. Mm-hmm. How can I go attract Stephanie to Charleston if I don't say that Mike's already there and Mike is one of 18?
Right.
There you go.
Right? So in my case, we might have had 18, but the public perception there was one. And the one, the Ellis Island of the tech industry in Charleston was blackballed.
Oh, okay.
That's a good get right there.
Okay.
Right?
Blackballed. Wow.
And so we just talked about blackballed, and we talked about blackballed, and blackballed was attracting more employees. Yeah. And what happens is that when you're attracting employees, you have two types of employees, two types of personalities. The guy who just wakes up one morning and says, "Oh, there's a better way to do this. I'm going to do this. I was in the shower and I basically figured it out." The dominant entrepreneur is one who has been in an environment and has figured out a better way to do it, whatever it is. And they break off, and then they go put a little team together, and it might be exactly something they were doing just in a different way, or it could be a totally different batch of stew. And we're going to do this. So the initial crop of companies that were springing up were individuals, professionals who now basically are feeling their entrepreneurial oats and have left Blackball to do their own thing. Mm-hmm. And that's how it got going. And Nate DePore, he was one of those individuals. He was a benefit focus, and he talked about it as cell multiplication, right? You'll get one, and the one will get two, and the two it becomes exponential at some point.
Yeah.
And you reach a certain point where you're not just generating 3 new companies, you're generating 50 new companies, 25 new companies, half of which are failing, but because the ones that are succeeding, you're not worried about the ones that are failing. And the ones who fail are not real failures. They were just testing the waters, and they went on to do other things, right? So failure is good. So among other things,
agreed.
We embraced failure, right?
Agreed.
I couldn't, because I was talking to a friend of mine at Nike, and he said, "Ernest," he says, "the incubation period when you're trying to do something like this in a community is way more difficult than the incubation for developing a new pair of sneakers and hoping it sticks." Right? So that was where I think I had to take a reasonably conservative approach. You can't play with the community's brand, knowing that many communities that have tried to do this have failed.
Sure.
Right? So the idea was go in, and oh, by the way, if I thought I could just keep plowing ahead, I didn't have any money. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had $18,000. That was the budget for. It was just me.
It's more than what AMA has. So there we go.
That's true. There's something.
And it was talking to a lot of people, right? And what you do is everybody's got an opinion. So what you've got to do is you've got to talk to 5 to see that now these, there's outliers, but then what's in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of, you look at it on a bell curve. I just got to look at, so that's how it started to develop. And then you have to, remember, this is all being produced now inside a public environment.
Right.
So you've got this legislative sausage, you got to go, the incentives that had to be put together, the brand. So you're managing just multiple things. You're making sure the data's coming in because we didn't supposedly have the data connections to do this.
Yep.
The professionals are a little reticent because they thought, you've got to work for Blackbud and it fails. Now you got to take these 5 guys who left Blackbud and started their own companies. So if you don't play the long game, then I'm just playing a game of job hopping, and basically it is easy to benefit yourself versus benefiting community, and so my situation enabled me to focus on community over self.
Amen.
Well, at some point, marketing played a role into help growing this.
It did.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you,
selfless community. That's our key
Connection.
takeaway right there.
Selfless.
Okay.
right? So you know,
all about
remember
the
I told
members.
you, now I'm super lonely.
Oh,
I've got 18,
funny.
you know. I
But
mean, you know,
he's
and
got
I'm
the
so-
wife and child.
and I've got, and
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like faking it really well. You know, I'm convincing everybody. It's like, don't worry, we'll be okay. You know, this will be okay.
Right.
The numbers are trending up, so I'm
That's
like,
good.
oh my God, you know. So I'm looking in the mirror every day before I go to work. Is Riley better? Is the community better? And am I better? Right.
You're no longer the bad guy.
Right. And well, you know, I'm thinking I'm like a rock star, but I'm like in my own world.
In your own
right?
world, yeah.
In my own world, because
Yeah.
it's taken. There's a lag, right?
I know
Right.
about that
You know,
world. I'm
and
there.
so now, so it's interesting. So now, like, okay, marketing, right? And what's really interesting, right, about marketing, is, you know, the with the lack of resources, I'm like, what is the one? Where can I go to tell the story, and preserve? Let me back up for just a minute. There's product development and there's marketing.
Yes.
Where can I go and develop the product that's so strong that now I got something to market,
I like it.
rather than what some
That's a
companies
good
do?
strategy.
You know, the old fake it before you make it. They'll go market, and then they'll go build a product. And by the way, it can work for a private company, right?
Yeah.
But my point is that it was just kind of in my DNA to go build a product, and you can't get slapped down. You go present it. Okay, you didn't get slapped down there. You're walking out with a smile on your face. Nobody, you know, everything's pleasant, but they don't really believe. But that validation will come. So what was interesting was, guess who I realized, because we're doing something that is very unique. I don't know what their motivations were, because ultimately, if we didn't fail, they might have hung Riley out to dry. But the newspaper outlets in the region
Right.
become my PR
Yep.
and my marketing arm.
Mm-hmm.
And so my press relationships become extremely important,
Earned media.
Right.
Was that what that's called? Earned media.
right? And my point
Students.
is that I had to. So we would have entrepreneurs go direct to the media, and we met with this guy, and he's such an idiot, and he's not talking to us, and I would before and Ernest, we were thinking about writing the story about this meeting, and I said, please write the story, but let me give you this, this, and this, right? So the entrepreneurs thought they could just we're going to see the government guy, you know, how can he possibly be right?
What's he gonna say?
Yeah. So when I would push back and say, well, that doesn't have any legs. Imagine being told that we have a search engine that's better than Google and it's not patented.
Sure.
And by the way, you should be investing in our company. I'm like, yeah, sure. I don't think so.
So you
Right.
became the tech guru, kind of.
So what you do early on, by virtue of the fact there is a now dedicated resource you can come and speak to, you also have a dedicated resource that will push back and will call you a bluff.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what did I do? I was completely ignorant. But all these people, this is a one-man shop, Stephanie. You know, everybody's like, oh, you must have 10 staff members. I'm jealous. Actually, I'm not.
You're like, no.
Because I've got 50 members of the community who want to offer guidance. So I've got them on speed dial, depending on what the topic was. You coming to meet with me about, what are you with me meeting about? So at 7 o'clock, I'd send an email saying, can you just drop something in so I come across as being intelligent? So I would get this, like, with white paper on
It's all
whoever.
about these relationships.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't buy this and put him on my team. First of all, I had no money, right? So I couldn't buy it anyway. But my point is, even if I had the money, I couldn't buy the expertise that these people brought to the party.
Right.
And the people who brought this to the party just they didn't want to be found. They just wanted to offer the advice, but they were not coming back if I didn't execute. So execution of anything became paramount,
Sure. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Don't talk about it, and don't strategize, and don't go not do another study.
Don't do
just
another
just go
study.
do it, right? Because it's a very binary response when you go do something. It's either, oh, this was a fail, or this was a pass. And if it's a pass, keep doing more, and if it, don't do that again. You know.
Right.
So
Learn.
we're like,
Fail
and I
fast.
told, and one of the things in terms of the relationships from a marketing standpoint, I told the guys, I said there are factors outside of my control that will dictate the community's success. But one thing I'll give you is I will call it very objectively. Right? I will tell you when we're wrong, and I'll tell you this, when we're wrong, you will always find me. So you will always, as a reporter, what happens if there's any bad news?
Oh, sure. Get on
You
it.
know, nobody wants to be found.
Yep.
Call me and I will take and I'll tell you why.
You're very
they're
transparent.
very transparent
Yeah,
until
first.
today, right?
Yep.
So the marketing became important. Now, so what happens is you're working on it and I tell people, I said, It's the guy in the kitchen approach, right? I'm in the kitchen just cooking away, and word, permeates to the ether that this guy's got some good food, so I don't have to have a host, right?
True. Yeah.
So because they just keep coming. The risk you run if you don't market is that certain things are changing in the front of the house, and you haven't paid attention, and you're in the back of the house.
Yeah.
Hey guys, gluten-free. People don't want to do this. They don't want. They stop eating beef. It's all about this. And if you don't know,
Right.
if you don't get out of the kitchen every now and again to take the pulse that I did very effectively in the early days, you're screwed.
I love that.
What's
Okay.
the pulse? What is
That
the pulse? The culture. The pulse there is.
The culture,
Heck
the
is-
preferences.
Mhm.
Who would have said that? Hey, my wife, or I'm not going to drop off the video. I'm going to order videos from Netflix. And who would have said when we went from Netflix, we're going to start streaming? Oh, this is a little kludgy. It's not working really well. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They said, "Oh no, Blockbuster. No, we're going to buy it for a lot of money." And Wayne's has got a lot of money. He'll force it to work.
Right.
So my point is that don't start. I call it basically, don't start drinking your own Kool-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to what's going on, and it's so heavily nuanced that if you don't stop talking and you start listening a little bit, or you start observing, you're screwed.
There we go.
So
That
the
is a
that.
very key takeaway right
Mhm.
there.
so the bottom line is, but let's talk about marketing. So we go along, and things are not moving.
You're relying 100% on the press at this point.
Relying 100% on the press, and even realize that the press was coming in and harvesting some of the stories and then writing stories beyond.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't. They
That
didn't
makes
want to
sense.
tell you. They were just coming to you. To kind
Pick your brain,
Well,
in a sense.
yeah. Essentially, what they were doing was they were looking at what I was writing, and this was what the entrepreneurs were saying. We're doing some really great stuff, and nobody wants to write about it. It was like, hello. So I played a reporter. I'm writing it, and we're publishing it.
Good for you.
Because remember, I'm a one-man shop now. I got to do it all, right? So now I have the local outlet say, no, we'll take that off your hands. We'll do it. And then what happened was, if you don't write this properly,
Yeah.
I won't be on the phone the next time you call.
No, you
So-
wouldn't be
so-
credited as an expert.
Yeah, so what happens is now you're putting you're putting a level of accountability on it.
Yeah.
Right? So that went on for a while. And then you realize it's not that we did not engage in marketing. So now when the CVB is out marketing the CDC, the Charleston Visitors Bureau is out marketing the Charleston Digital Corridor by a factor of 99.9 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? Marketing works.
It does.
Right.
That's what people think of. This is an amazing place
Thank
to
you,
recreate.
Travel and Leisure Magazine.
Yeah, this is an amazing place to recreate, and so we're just going to recreate. And guess who's recreating? These amazing tech folks, these amazing venture capitalists,
Yeah.
these amazing. They don't come to town to work or to explore. They come to work to recreate, golf, food,
Yes.
all the things that we love, music, that kind of thing. Nice people.
So you built the culture from
Yeah.
within.
So what I said is, hey, wait a minute. We got to start slowly, kind of pushing this message out.
Yeah.
Don't make a mistake. How it manifested itself is secondary, but we did have to market. And so we would tell people who would talk it up, that kind of thing, in the way they could. The papers are going to report, as a very matter of fact.
Right.
But what I
Hopefully.
what I didn't realize is that the newspapers reporting something, the news report, I say, we're in a different place today, but the news outlets reporting what we did was the ultimate truth in advertising.
Right.
This guy is not trying to sell us. They're just trying to inform us on what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it became more prolific.
There we go.
Because with the success, the press releases, I'm just telling you. One day I tried hey, I got this amazing press release about this company, and I got a phone call from the reporter and said, we're here to talk about what's going on in the community. We're not the PR agency for that company, Company X.
Right.
So I got that. But the bottom line
Flip
is,
that script though, didn't you?
So now you have enough time. So we say, okay, we've played in the education space, and let's, as we well know, since the beginning of time, Charleston has been shaped by people who moved into the community. To some extent, that hasn't changed. And by the way, here's something that just dropped in my inbox last month.
Mm.
The state of South Carolina was ranked the number one state in the country for in-migration. Okay? And Charleston was ranked the number 1 city in the state of South Carolina for in-migration. So we at the top of the top.
Yeah.
I see.
Right? Now, here's what I would say, right? That can somewhat be a problem, except the people who are coming in younger. They're coming in with 20 years to contribute to our economy.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming in more educated. They're coming in more financially well off, which is, to some extent, driving everything up. But remember, pricing and these functions are all a function of desirability.
And that's one thing, we're attracting bigger businesses.
Yeah. So let's not go shoot the goose.
Sure.
Or the geese as they fly south, I guess, and don't leave. So they didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The thing that we need to do is, again, keep your eye on the price. Focus on growing the wages.
Right.
So with that comes a more competitive, and that's what the pandemic did. The pandemic forced Charleston-based companies to pay wages commensurate with what's going on at a national level. It caused a 20% bump.
I wasn't aware of that. That's an
Oh, yes.
interesting stat right there.
If
Okay.
you look at it's the first time, I say 20, it's more like 12%.
Okay.
But a year-over-year job, we do an annual survey, which we've been doing since 2003.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it jumped 12% in 1 year was
That's significant.
was significant.
It would
Yeah.
level
And
the
so,
playing field. then.
Again, now, we're not hearsay. We're actually tracking this data, and we're saying attributed to what?
Right.
So on the receiving end, knock, knock, who are you? No, Boston. Knock, knock, who are you? California. Knock, knock, who are you? Coming out of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing
My
these
whole
people come
street
in.
Yeah.
is
We're-
full of
and
people
and
like
that is a good thing for our community. Right?
I think so too.
And the opportunities that exist, a very important point to make, and this is the broad appeal of a show like this, right? When I tell folks that the makeup of a tech company is comprised only of about 20 to 25% of technologists.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it are non-technical roles, customer success, design, marketing, PR,
Yeah.
accounting, financial, legal. So nobody should be reticent to fully embrace the growth of tech,
Right.
right? And that's
Lots of
something
jobs
that
to be had right there.
so the multiplier effect in terms of not just in terms of the incomes, but the multiplier effect of the jobs that have become available.
Yep.
The other thing is that when you get in, you have to be reasonably tech savvy, which is, and I'll get to that in just a minute, which is why we created the CDC Learning Center. So yesterday we had a class of attendees ranging from 22 to 60
Okay.
on an introduction to ChatGPT
Okay.
class, right?
All right.
So what we're saying is,
What did
Okay,
you
take-
teach?
take all of this, right, and
Uh-huh.
create opportunities for everybody, and don't exclude anybody from coming to industry. There might be a late bloomer later.
Right.
So my point is that you're reasonably tech savvy. Boss, I can come in and I can run your marketing, and I can use AI to make things more efficient. But guess what? You didn't have to have a technical background to do that. So my point is, as technology permeates every aspect of our lives, it now means that everyone out there is now fair game to come into the industry. Right? And that is
Yeah.
a beautiful thing, right? That I had never thought that. We kept talking about convergence in the 2000s. Well, by 2010 now, it was very evident of how things are converging. And by 2020, it was absolutely in full bloom. And things like ChatGPT, the fact is, Stephanie, that you can say, hey, ChatGPT, can you write the code to develop a little website to keep my family recipes? And you can get the code snippet, that section of code, that you just drop in and create a website doing it.
Which
That is
took,
wild to me.
hours
That-
on top of hours.
Which absolutely would
of
require
coding.
that you have to communicate with 3 people and everything else. And oh, by the
Uh-huh.
way,
Yeah.
since you're already design-oriented professional and SEO and that kind of thing, you can say, okay, now. But my point is that 2 young ladies at the College of Charleston can actually create an agency just using 23 years I've been doing this.
I was using ChatGPT right before I got here to write
ChatGPT?
blogs.
Yeah.
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 The kids, the young adults that are coming out of the Charleston, the College of Charleston, are amazing.
Amazing.
They're so smart. We were there doing a speed networking
Yep.
thing last Monday or Tuesday
Yep.
or whatever. I was thrown back I was like, these kids, young adults,
for our
pardon me,
jobs.
Yep.
are so smart.
So smart. It's impressive.
Much-
so then
much
my
more
next
tech-savvy.
thought was, how do we keep them here?
Well, I think the again, I come back to a question comes up, right? What are you doing to attract entrepreneurs? What are you doing to attract students? So let's not be foolhardy and believe that what we got going on here is the best thing since sliced bread. Let's fundamentally accept that every community has an Ernest there, and they're all trying just that hard.
Okay.
So we have to earn our stripes every day,
Mm-hmm.
which means that you can't just exist. You can't become apathetic. Ooh, look at this great success. I drew a chart out for somebody, and I said, 2010, 2001 to 2010, 10 years, we were at basically about a 28% trajectory. From 2010, crisis, subprime,
Yep.
everything at the bottom dropped out.
Yep.
We go from that to another 30% trajectory because tech moved in and everything became tech enabled, right? You know, tech
Yeah.
is the answer to.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you get to 2020, and you think, oh my gosh, we're all cooked here. Boom, tech took off again. What were the two factors that contributed to our success since 2020 forward? The fact that working remote and working distributed accelerated at a rate like we've never seen and
Changer.
won't see again in our life.
Exactly.
It was a game changer, right?
It definitely was.
Which is what's causing these, the debt in some of these office buildings to be a challenge. Okay, number one, in terms of what happened in 2020. But number two, wage levels came up. So that's a silver lining. So we got smarter people moving at a higher rate than ever before. They were moving, by the way. This trickle, somebody went and turned the spigot on a little more,
Yes.
right? And that's the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just breeds fire into something that is successful. To where now what you have to guard against is what I come back to when I started. Why am I here? I'm here for livability. Don't jam up your livability because the next community is waiting in the wings. Right? They'll come to us next because housing prices will be low, congestion's not as bad. It's all the things that we want about livability. Livability, the tech industry is a lifestyle industry, right? It's a high lifestyle industry. I want to be on the water.
Yeah, because
I
you
want
can
to be
do
able.
anywhere and work
I
in
want
tech.
culture. We
Yeah.
didn't even talk about the cultural offerings in the community that we're punching above our weight class in Little Charleston, South Carolina. Okay, maybe not so little, but we're still little on a relative
We're
basis.
relatively
city, right?
so, yes.
Yeah.
So the idea is to engage. I mean, I think to your point, Mike,
We were a small city before you got here. You know what I mean?
we'll just fill them up with people making a lot of money.
There you go.
So you alluded to the fact that the kids are coming out more savvy,
Yeah.
and what we can do is we can create opportunities for them.
I want to hear
So Amy, not Amy, Megan, graduated from USC,
Okay.
and her uncle happens to run the EO organization, and he says, you might want to talk to Ernest over there. He runs
EO, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
the
Yep.
entrepreneur organization,
Yep.
and you might want to talk to Ernest. And so she graduated from USC, business degree, and she comes in. She's just very dedicated. Next thing is she's got a job, right? There were 7 interviews. She was the only one from on the ground in Charleston,
Okay.
right? She's got a job. But what's significant about that job? First of all, she's already several thousand above the per capita for the region.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And so if she keeps it up, now she's going to be 50% above the per capita of the region. That is a young person's journey into Charleston. There's plenty of those. There's more of those today than there's ever been. And it is not my responsibility to say, to single you out and single, because of the fact that tech is basically now embedded in every aspect of our life. There are more jobs in more diverse sectors.
Mm-hmm.
So it touches every sector, and you can get it. There are more job opportunities, career opportunities available in Charleston to freshly minted graduates.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
As I like to say, sometimes when I come full circle on these things, and I have a PowerPoint up on stage, I said, okay, we start with 3 simple objectives: job opportunities for the kids, which is what you just said. Raise per capita wages and economic diversity. And so I'll start by saying these, and then I'll end by saying, hey, we're more economically diverse since the city and community was founded in 1670. We have more job opportunities than we've ever had in every area. and our wages basically are now. I mean, the last time we did the survey,
Competitive.
the wages in the tech sector on average are 2.5 times the per capita for the region.
Oh,
Wow.
Right.
okay.
So my point being that by any stretch of the imagination, whether they came along or not, the community has benefited from some of the things the digital corridor has done, and it will continue on.
Yeah.
But in order now, I said, I talked about the trajectory, right? So between 2020 and 2030, in order to stay competitive, we have to invest in key infrastructure that takes us to the next level.
Okay. Such
Right.
as?
So the idea of we have a lot of defense companies here.
Okay.
They don't have a SCIF.
A what now?
A SCIF is a secure compartmentalized information facility.
Oh, I got one of those.
It is the
I don't. I really don't have one of those.
It is
I
the
don't.
only place where you can take top secret federal property and discuss it. So you got to go to NIWIC, you got to go to a federal establishment to kind of. But when you can have one that anybody can come to, and they can deal in top, and have that level of top security, that's an investment, and that is more expensive than number two. Where is the lab space that an individual can go and say, I want to just go tinker around? And I'll draw this. This is okay. So I'm going to just kind of finish physically. It's the development of a SCIF that is without public investment. There are arguments being made around the country. Well, without the private sector to drive it. Well, you know what? Without the private sector to drive it. Try going to one of these entrepreneurs and saying, Bob, I've got this idea for this digital corridor, and see how far you'd get.
Right.
It'd throw you out in about 3 seconds.
Yeah.
But Riley was at least indulgent. He wasn't a believer, but he was indulgent, and he became a believer, right? So my point is there are people making arguments around the country that it is the private sector that will drive innovation. I'm going to tell you right now that without the public sector, without the city of Charleston, we would not be having this conversation today.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
They bought a piece of land worth $4 million today and gave it to the foundation for $1. We leveraged that to build the tech center. It was a $54 million production. We have a second piece of land, and that'll be another $50+ million production.
Okay.
Right? But who seeded it? Who was my seed investor? It was a public entity.
Mm-hmm.
My point now is we've grown big enough to where, in order the next level of success is going to come from collaboration between the state, who benefit. They collect 7% of the taxes on the $120,000
They've
income.
got skin in the game.
They've got the county, the entire region is going to have to. It has now gone from being. I tell people, I said, enough of the I. We will only succeed moving forward if it becomes a we,
Sure.
and that's a wholehearted we, not a we, not a kind of namby-pamby.
Yeah.
You're in, man.
You're in.
You're in.
We're in.
You know where your legs going to get chopped off.
Well, you've been doing that since the 80s, so
Well,
it sounds like. You've been all in.
I've been all in. I mean,
You've been
whatever
all
I
in.
do, right? So,
Right.
so somebody said to me, "How the hell can you go from annexation to tech?"
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Well, what do you want to do tomorrow? If I'm in,
Is there?
we're in because you know what? I tie it back to where I started. It's those Jesuits.
They beat you into it, huh?
Yeah, they it's.
I would
it's
have
absolute-
loved
it's-
to known you back in the day.
it's well. It's kind of funny, right? It's the Jesuits, and I love to tell people I say,
Yeah.
like I never got from 90 to 100. I was like, quite honestly, I was in the mid 70s to mid 80s, right? So I was like the underdog,
Yeah.
and I developed this. I can go watch a game, and someone's like, "Who are you pulling for?" Well, I'm pulling for the 49ers, man. Because they're the underdog in this game. I want them to win, right?
Yeah.
Not because I'm in love with either team or like.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this kind of underdog mindset, and the reality is that you get in, and just go.
Yeah.
So I'm like, because they are winning, right? They are that 10% of my classmates
Mm-hmm.
who just killing it, and so I wanted to be like them.
Right.
And the way you be like them is you. I tell people, I said, we just outworked. There's this new mindset. Succeed fast or fail fast. All these cliches that people throw around, right? And for every cliche that somebody throws at me, I'm like, yeah, there's no fast route to basically building this community.
Right.
Because you know what? The first 10 years, everybody's sitting on the sidelines going, you'll fail. Right? So for the entrepreneurs, that's the entrepreneur mindset, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to work, man. You're going to get tripped up. You're going to be So he decided to go at it. And a few of them crest. And those few, let's just talk about those few, have sold their companies, and I'm saying few, less than 10, and which with a yield of $2 billion plus in this community.
Dear Lord.
Yeah, which you don't read about.
No.
Okay, we've had why the city basically the first facility the city said indulge me in the old Hollywood video store. Here's $104,000.
Okay.
Actually, I'm sorry, 112. Number 6, the new facility, was $54 million, including the garage. It is optimized in every way you can imagine, right? There is no excuse from a facility and a support standpoint. Remember, we're not the entrepreneur making shit happen. We're just the ones supporting you and making shit happen, right? And we don't want anything from you. The last guy walked away with several $100 million. It's fine.
Okay.
And several of them have done that in the last couple of years. It's fine. So that's kind of the journey, right? You continue to invest, and you're going to reap. But if you think you're just going to reap without investing, the other communities, and just for our conversation, the Georgias, the North Carolinas, and the Florida will win. Our surrounding states will win. So it has to be. I want more success. I don't want the next 10 years to be we're growing at a 3% rate.
Right.
And if you make the right investments, the governor on one hand crows about the $1.6 billion surplus. What the state of South Carolina just did was spend $880,000 in innovation across the state of South Carolina.
That all?
That should be $88 million.
That doesn't sound like a lot.
On a $1.6 billion, right?
Yeah.
But my point is, it is incumbent on folks like myself to work with the legislator to kind of show you what can be done. This stopped being a pilot project a long time ago. And so, what I would say to the folks listening is this is just a great example of what couldn't and shouldn't happen, but happened.
Yeah.
Right?
And thankfully so, because look at these statistics you've got here. Over 700 companies,
well,
entrepreneurs, tech companies came through.
230 graduates. The most recent one
tech
being
incubators. So
yeah, quick sort,
Impressive.
just graduated, with an average wage in the mid 6 figures, $2 billion in investment.
Yeah.
We are now 5% of the regional economy. Tech is 5% of the regional economy.
That's
and growing,
huge.
right?
That is huge.
So my point is that the investment by the community will yield back in the community, and for those entrepreneurs who come in, they're entitled to run away with their bags of riches.
That's what I was, because I love listening to the story of how you became who you're going to be and who you just exceed all your expectations. Probably you have a lot still coming.
Well, he's not done yet, and I got a dad up apparently, right?
Yeah.
Because he did all this for his kid.
I think you're doing.
Isn't
a
that
good
what
job
I
being a
learned
dad.
earlier? There, you did all this
yeah,
for your kid.
but I mean, Stephanie, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just curious. What kind of advice would you give to someone who's trying to break into, like a young adult, like say you have a kid who's high school who has an interest in tech, like what route would you've shift gears a lot and your journey has changed. So how would they get started?
I think the first thing I would tell any young person is don't try to be something you're not, right? So we have, and I would love to share that with you guys and perhaps the audience at some point. We have a chart that's based on your personality type. You're loyal, you're rational, you're inquisitive.
Handsome.
They fall exactly. So the reality is that the tech industry wants them all. So the idea being, my parents swore that I would be a software engineer, and it's not something I wanted to do. It might be different today, but working with when I was working with punch cards was not my idea of fun. But yet I came full circle and I work with the tech industry. Isn't that crazy? So my point is that to be passionate about whatever they do it well, and then be curious, and then just go place themselves. Like I want to just come. I was joking, said I want to learn how to cook Thai food, and so I was joking with somebody saying, I'm going to see if they'll let me wash dishes at the Thai restaurant, so I can kind of look over my shoulder at what's going on.
Right.
And by talking to the guys, right? So put yourself in a situation, force yourself. You got to throw yourself in it, at it. Nobody's going to say, "Hey, Bobby, Susie, y'all come on up. Let's no."
Wait, did you do dishes at a Thai restaurant?
No, but I.
You would have.
But,
You
but,
would
but,
have.
but, but it's on my list. It's on my list. Just how am I going to learn to cook Thai food?
Right. I love it.
Minus a recipe and watching YouTube.
Right. Oh,
Right.
there's that.
Why does that taste like that?
Uh-huh.
So my point is back to, I think for any young person, they've got to figure out what they're passionate about. And I just got through telling you that a tech company has every aspect of what somebody's passionate about, and just be better at it, and work hard, and have this kind of, I'm just going to be the best I'm going to do, and I'm going to. So what when I started, somewhere in there, when I was weaving through, I said, I wanted to know that my boss, Joe Riley, was better off that morning, that day, that month for what I was doing. Right? And so if you go into with that mindset of, I'm going in whatever I do, they are going to be better for what I do. Mm-hmm. And you have this mindset of being, I'm a donor, not a recipient.
Right.
Right.
You will go a long way, right? And then what happens is pretty soon, it really becomes emancipating, because that young person's thinking to themselves, who needs who more? I'm really an important part of this organization. And I tell folks, if you go in an organization that is healthy, right? This is what Joe Riley said a long time back. I remember him saying this to a third party. What can I do? We have these good people who come in, they learn, and then they move on.
Right.
Right? It's a healthy situation. So anybody who works for me, I'm like, I want you to do the best you can, and I'm sure somebody's going to pick you off and go. And then I struggle, basically, but it only takes me about 3 days, 3 weeks to kind of get back, from the loss of that person, because I'm running lean.
Yep.
Right.
Now, I think one of you guys had asked early on, right? We started out as a one-man show, basically a one-man shop, and we existed as that for 10 years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Today, we are just a 3-person shop.
Oh.
So
What?
we're
Only
three. The Charleston Digital Corridor is run basically by a marketing coordinator who we just hired out of SCAD in December.
Good for you.
Yeah, introduce us
So we
to
were we were a 2-person shop who just went to 3-person, an operations manager and myself.
Wow.
Right?
I had no idea. That's impressive.
And an amazing brain trust
Right.
of community-minded folks who want this community to be what we are making it and want it to be better.
They've bought in.
They completely
100%.
have bought it, and they all have advice, and all we have to do is just go and execute some of the wonderful things we hear
Mm-hmm.
that day, that week, that month.
Yeah.
And look, if you do it well enough, you end up being so we're very proud of meeting those objectives. More importantly, when I talked about being selfish, this isn't about what I was doing, right? This should be, will and should be by design, felt for generations beyond people in the workforce today. That's the idea, right? I'm a very accomplished surgeon. I'm a very accomplished son. What's my daughter, son going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's about them.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the mindset. It's this kind of go along. So I was thinking, what about my daughter, right?
Right.
She can go. They can go work anywhere in the world they want to. But can they work in Charleston and have an amazing
Full
life? Be able to afford that house that's up 200% from basically 10 years ago,
Right.
and that kind of thing. So we wake up with that kind of mindset. We don't wear it on our sleeve, but we're very deliberate in what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We're pragmatic in the approach, and we're perfectly fine saying no. We don't try to be everything to everybody. And if there's it's not going to be a no for no sake. It's a constructive no.
Right.
So I think that that's, and we're very sort of value oriented. So to me, I mean, I just sharing that sort of mantra, and just go for it, but be sort of deliberative and have this kind of I'm in to win.
Yeah.
Don't get in if you want to just kind of go in and if you're gonna come at it with a mediocre mindset, things like ChatGPT will replace you. But if you come at it with how do I use these tools, right? So my point is you use technology to command it, and if you're not careful, it will command you.
Right?
Yes.
And that's a good way to look at it.
It is.
Really is. So what are you doing to intentionally bring technology to minorities and women?
Great question, Mike. So early on, you look at Microsoft, you look at all the big companies, all the the Google and everything else, and they're like, my gosh, it really, we're off. We need to bring more minorities.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you the one thing that is extremely important to me, and that is if you hear it come out of somebody's mouth, what they are referencing is they're referencing a condition, an economic condition that existed 10 years ago
Okay.
or 5 years ago.
Okay.
They're not referencing what exists today. And I'm going to give you a case in point.
Please do.
We had a class yesterday on ChatGPT.
Yep.
50% of it was female.
Okay.
Within that female audience, we had an African American and we had a Hispanic. We're not just talking about, nobody seems to want to include the Hispanics in that count.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? One of our partners is the Hispanic Business Association, right? 50%. Everybody say, well, don't leave it 20%. Okay, number one. Number two, when we started the year at the Tech Center, at the flagship, we started with one woman entrepreneur, right?
Okay.
We're 6 weeks into the year, almost
Already.
through the day,
Good Lord.
and we have 4 women entrepreneurs in the building, 2 of which have benefited from our diversity initiative. Our diversity initiative isn't just discounting some space and saying, come on over, it's putting them with mentors, helping them with whatever they need, right? So we distinguish ourselves from traditional incubation in that we're not going to give you a steady ration of things you should know. We're going to tell you, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you tell us what you need when you need it. So it's on demand, right?
Okay.
Well, I'd like to meet somebody with capital. There's a gentleman who mentioned it in the class yesterday. He's a serial entrepreneur.
Okay.
And he's got this transcriptionist service, medical transcriptionist service. And I just happen to have a venture capital firm in town for the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
Nice.
And they're meeting at 2:00 because he
Wow.
just
That
said,
worked out
I'd like to, right?
Hey, we're
So I
looking
want
for
to come back to the
sponsors.
minorities.
Ernest.
Okay, so having a diversity initiative,
Uh-huh.
anybody who comes into the Learning Center who is underrepresented doesn't pay for the class,
Okay.
right? So that's the other thing, right? You just use a code to kind of get in. And I say that if we keep it's already, the trajectory is already rising, but you just keep at it.
Yeah.
You keep at it. I've got 2 girls at home, so I'm more sensitive to women in the workplace than almost anybody. But I'm not going to wear it like a chip on my shoulder. I'm going to say what options they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them the one thing I would say about diversity and minorities. Anybody who comes to me who is in that category, so you have to work harder than any of them. I did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean.
Otherwise, and you, it's just the reality, right? So don't think there's this tendency to think, oh, you should give me a handicap because.
Right.
No.
Right.
No, you're going to get a handicap, but you're still going to have to work harder. But what I'm giving you
I
is
think
just
that's
a small form.
as a woman, that's a true statement.
Yeah.
It's true statement. Period.
So,
Yeah.
what do how do I feel about? Don't want something for them that they don't want for themselves. But the reality is, for those who want, there is more opportunity. Again, I said there's more opportunity today. Just ask me what I'm doing, not what I think should happen, right? And that's the thing. I just can't get into meetings, and I'm like, listen, I know the issues. I didn't come here unprepared. I just want to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing,
Nice.
right? We're incentivizing at a higher level than, and there are some glaring facts that we can get into about what we've learned from doing that.
Sure.
That
Well,
will help. That will help
We'll have
shape.
to send some of these
Send those
people our
facts.
way so we can have them on the podcast.
Yeah, that would shape some.
Oh,
of
that'd be
these
great.
things.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
to have 2 women entrepreneurs and say, talk about. We've got 2 right now. One is a little camera shy. The other one is great. She's like, my God, this is great. I just tell them I need
Send
something.
her
like
away.
that.
Exactly.
Now I
Oh,
want to hear. I want to close out with
Yeah.
your elevator pitch.
Yeah.
I want the.
So we want
Well-
entrepreneurs and tech companies to come to
Right.
you, right?
Yeah.
And
And I
so what
wanna-
we're doing too is we're selling Charleston as
Yeah.
That's what we
as
do.
the American Market Association Charleston podcast. I looked you guys. You're here because I wanted you,
Yeah.
because all of the stuff that you've done for the city, but the CDC
Transformative.
really
Whole
looks
nother level.
like a future AMA. Like, why
Yes.
can't Charleston be a marketing hub?
Yeah.
Like you created. I mean, I'm not you. I can't take, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
we're going to build. We're going to keep at it, right? We're going to be persistent and work hard.
Yeah.
So what's your elevator pitch?
Well, I think. Okay. Here's what I would say. First of all, unlike traditional economic development, where incentives or why you're here, right?
Yeah.
Cheaper labor, cheaper land. Oh, but we'll give you this. What we said is we're going to create an optimal environment for you to succeed, right? That is, if we can just clear your mind to focus on the one thing that will drive success, well, we have done that. Anybody who comes into the flagship, it is this mantra to anybody around me. We want you to focus on being successful, and we will take care of the rest. There is no baggage. I mean, the rest being anything. Tell me what you need, and you will get it.
Pretty resourceful, dude.
Okay? That's the point. Why? Why can we do that? Because we are singularly focused on tech entrepreneurs. Everybody can say that, but go around, she's port. Go around over there, they're manufacturing. Go around over there, they're distribution. No, none of those guys around us. I don't need to have those conversations. I need to focus on what is next in terms of tech.
Yes.
And I need to basically, I need to very quickly, as the concierge, as the conductor, get you to those no-nonsense resources where you can be successful. And everything else just goes away, right? And depending on how bad I want it, I mean, even financially things can go away, around because we want you to focus on that, right? There could come a day, basically, where we have, you're coming into the green line, red light, or, red line, green line. The green line is everything is on us. Everything's on us. We'll take a small piece of the company.
Okay.
The red line right now is, you pay a small subsidized, but it's but the bottom line is that, when you grow from 18 companies to 700, here's what I would say, Mike. It's the stew, right? Let the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
This is why you want to be here, not because I sold you better than the next community. Because we have the ingredients, and at the end of the day, there are things that touches my soul that doesn't touch your soul, it doesn't touch her soul. If Charleston is the place that touches your soul, then you need to be here.
Boom.
I love it.
So,
Okay.
thank you all.
Fine then.
Thank you.
This was exciting.
Yes.
This was very fun.
Thank you, Ernest. How do they get a hold of you? What?
So I think that, everything, in terms of the Charleston Digital Corridor, everything revolves around Charleston Digital, .com, Charleston Digital Corridor, and then in terms of the CDC Learning Center, which is our new initiative, which we launched in September, which is all kind of focused on tech ed. It's cdclearningcenter.com.
cdclearningcenter.com.
Very, very simple. They just kind of track with our name.
And you just had a session on AI.
We have a series on AI, and we've got an amazing session on, it's a 4-hour session on sales, developing your sales playbook for an entrepreneur.
Oh.
And that is, it's from a guy, an entrepreneur, a Canadian entrepreneur who settled in on building on facility number 1, our original flagship, and cashed out. He sold his company and he says, Ernest, I'm here and I'm ready to give back. What you did for me was amazing.
Yes.
So he's got this an amazing class. And again, for underrepresented folks, they come in at no charge, but they'll learn a lot about it. And this is how he prefaced it. I was joking with my co-founder, I thought we knew a lot about sales until a silent investor in a company mentioned about this. We need to go to this. Boy, did we not know.
Nice.
So it's a very comprehensive 4-hour session. And that's what's coming up next week.
I love that. And for someone who wants to sign up at cdclearningcenter.com.
Yeah, cdclearningcenter.com. And by the way, full circle, we are now spending money to market the CDC Learning Center.
Look at that.
While we're
Look
building,
at that.
we are not just building product. I'm not just the kitchen. I've got one leg in the kitchen and one leg basically hosting.
Hey, we want to help.
Yeah, so listeners,
AMA.
go ahead and follow them on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, right? At CDC Learning Center.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Love
and,
it.
So we're just getting started on that, and it's pretty soon you're going to have a robust curriculum. Everybody, we get these surveys. We do a very aggressive survey, and everybody's like, we want more.
Awesome.
We'll be
But
sure to
more-
push that out to our own LinkedIn network, the Charleston AMA, because all those classes are
And-
very vital.
And I would add,
information.
Stephanie, this is not, again, so you become one of the Army, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking for one of the elements of marketing is how you use these low to no cost tools when you're starting out.
Mm-hmm.
In this lean startup model, right? We're looking for somebody to come in and start to come in and talk about these are all ways, these are all online tools that are available. Hey, by the way, you might want to ask them to do a Google review.
Sure.
So we're looking for somebody from the, they talk about, from the marketing association, a professional can come out and say,
I would be happy
we're
to do
leading
it.
this class, and these are things, you need.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
I'm
creates
interested if you need someone. So let me
that
know.
creates
Well,
these
AMA is
synergies,
interested, yeah.
with the organizations, and similarly the partnership would be like, guys, I'm not getting anything, but you guys get 50% discount on any class they offer moving forward.
That would
for
be
this.
great.
You
Maybe
see what
we
I'm saying?
can do like like an AMA panel where we could like 3 or 4 of us
Exactly.
to come in and share our knowledge and
Whatever you need.
whatever you
Yeah,
need, we're
yeah.
here
You
to
got
help.
my number.
So
You
the
got
beauty of
Steph's number.
this is the formation of a relationship rather than, there's the AMA over there and the CDC over there, the
That's
CAMA over there.
exactly it.
That's
But
exciting.
now that's what I look for, right? To have what I call meaningful partnerships.
Yes.
So
Well, thank you for this meaningful conversation,
It was
was great.
wonderful.
Ernest.
I enjoyed being
Learned a
here.
lot.
We always
Learned a
love
lot.
to see you.
Even Brian learned a lot.
And
Look at him.
please send some of your people from Digital Corridor our way.
Your
Have them on.
marketing director.
Yeah.
That person, she needs to join our club.
Absolutely. I'm going
Yeah.
to go back and tell her that.
Yes.
Awesome.
And
That's
pay
great.
for it
Yeah,
too. Right?
absolutely. Exactly.
Okay, there
Yeah,
we go.
sure. Absolutely.
Ha!
I'd be happy to do it.
All right.
What they
Well,
did
before
there.
we leave, Steph, do you want to close us out, or you want me to?
Oh, I'll be happy to close it out. Thank
Do
you
it.
guys for being with us here today. We, of course, have to thank our sponsors, the Charleston Radio Group. Brian, thanks for your help today, bud. You're the best. We want to say what's up to our boy, Jerry Feels Good.
It feels good. What's up, buddy?
Who is our intro and the beats on the way out. So thank you for being with us today, Ernest. And Mike and Stephanie would like to say goodbye. So
See you next time, Charleston.
bye, Charleston.
Thanks, Ernest.
Thank you.
Woohoo!